Let's talk about sex. So it's our sexual education course for individuals living with spinal cord injuries. I have two amazing guests here today. Dr. Mitchell, along with, it's under Ted Kopeek from Intimate Rider.
That's where you're from, Ted?
Glad to be here. Well, I'm from Wisconsin.
No, but is your sister Lisa?
There's a lot of Kepkes around the area. We may be related, but I'm an only child on my side. So.
There used to be someone named Lisa who was involved in the marketing of the Intimate Rider. I thought it was someone related to her that made it.
Okay. Yeah, it's a fairly common name over in the Schwano area. There's a Kepke Marsh, Kepke Road. It's where a big section of the family was. But you know, we've all spread out and dispersed, so we've got plenty of relations out there I'm sure I'm unaware of.
All right.
So
great to meet you, Ted.
Yep. So
Good to meet you.
I'm glad that we all was able to connect. This has been a very important topic amongst especially newly injured individuals, but all individuals living with spinal cord injuries. So that was the purpose of me bringing everyone together, and to learn more about what you can do or what you might not know about. And it should be very informative today. So if you want to start, Ted, with your presentation on it, we could start there, and then we follow up. Dr. Mitchell could talk about what he has been doing for the community, which is he's done so many tremendous things, as well as we could ask him some questions. All right, so let's get started.
Sounds good. I appreciate it. Okay, so I believe I'm sharing a screen that says Intimate Rider, Living Spinal. Welcome. Can you all see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, so Intimate Rider is the product and system, assistive device for sexual experience. Living Spinal is the company that I work for. We are the global distributor of the Intimate Rider system. I'll give you just a brief introduction here of myself. My name is Ted Kepke. I'm actually a historian by training. I've got a bachelor's of science in history. And I've been in the medical device market for over 10 years now. I've done just about everything: x-ray equipment, disease testing platforms, what have you. But my real interest is in kind of more niche products, emergent markets, and Intimate Rider is what really interested in me in joining Living Spinal. I myself am able-bodied. I don't face the same challenges here, but once I found out about this product, it was kind of lightning bolt to the brain here. Like, wow, this fulfills a role and a need that, you know, someone like me may not have really even been aware of. It's something that just makes sense. I myself, I'm also not a clinician, so I'll be speaking more to just simply the product side of what the Intimate Rider is and all that is currently available on it. So I'll go into it here for you. So here is the Intimate Rider. This is the original design. Call it a sex chair, but it's an assistive device. It was designed by a man living with C6, C7 SCI. So you have this short chair here, and you have a swinging mechanism under the seat. That's really the key to it all. It provides a natural back and forth gliding motion. It's activated by a very limited movement, upper body movement. And it, again, was designed initially for use for those with paralysis. We found out it's helpful for other situations as well, those who may be living with the effects of stroke, arthritis, back pain, amputation, and simply elderly folks that may need some help with the movement. And where this turned into, we still have the original chair, but we have a number of configurations and accessories to really flesh out that experience further for you. And right there at the bottom is my contact information. Feel free to send me an email or give me a call if you have any other questions, after this presentation. That's what we're here to do. So a little bit more on it. Again, it provides that natural gliding motion with that swing mechanism under the seat here. The shallow seat allows for room between the partners, so you're not getting much obstruction in the way there. It's constructed from sturdy steel. There's a 275-pound weight cap to it, so it's pretty robust. The cover on it is machine washable as needed. There's accessories available. And for transfer, it's going to be a big thing here. What we say is take it slow. It helps to position the intimate rider next to a bed or another stable object you can get some assistance from. And also assistance from your partner can be very helpful in transferring here. And what we liken it to is if you can transfer in and out of a car, you should be able to transfer into the intimate rider chair with relative ease. And I also post the cost here in case you all want to know. It's $4.99 for the IR. So a little bit more on its design here. It actually folds up for storage, and there is a travel bag for it as well. Fits right in the travel bag. You can take it wherever you need to go. And over here we have specifications on it. I don't know how deeply you want me to go into that, but this also shows our rider mate bench, which is a positioning device for your partner. And that also folds up for storage, and we have a travel bag for that as well. And then all of the intimate riders comes with a positioning guide, so you can kind of get some ideas on uses for it. One thing I will say that I've noticed so far, and especially with this positioning guide, it's set up to be very male-centric. However, there is female-centric position shown here at the bottom right. So that's something I'm curious to see, where that goes in the future for all people to use it. So the next thing we have, another configuration of that IR chair, is a high back chair. It's 4 inches taller on the back in case you're a taller person, you need some additional back support. It's the same natural gliding movement, machine washable cover, a little bit more costly than the normal IR chair. The rider mate bench that I had spoken of before, it's a positioning device for your partner. It sits at level with the IR chair. It's got non-skid leg tips for increased stability. And again, it folds up for easy and discreet storage or travel. And the fabric on it is machine washable. The next thing that we offer along with the Intimate Rider is a deluxe wedge set. This is also another partner positioning product. If you're familiar with Liberator cushions, they all use a micro fabric cover that helps to hold the wedges together through friction while also being silky smooth. They're very comfy. The covers are washable, and as far as the positioning options, this is definitely the partner preferred option. I've gotten that feedback a few times.
Ever have a DNA test? Check your heritage. I have. You know what I am? Half jackal.
I'll continue on. So the next thing we offer is the Intimate Rider seat cushion. In case you need some further support on the chair itself, there is a cushion sized to the Intimate Rider chair that's available. It's made by Liberator as well. Features the same micro fabric to hold grip on there. It's machine washable, and there's actually a waterproof nylon layer between the cover and the internal foam. Also along with that is this Liberator made positioning strap. This would be helpful for partner positioning, very comfy, primary usage to go around your partner's hips and help position them wherever you need to be.
Y'all really thought about everything. Golly.
I hope so. It's definitely an exciting system. I like it quite a bit. It's the most exciting thing I've ever done with my sales career. And outside of that, I simply like to help people, and this is a human need. So here we are. In case your chair cover gets beaten up over the years, we do have available replacement covers. These are the same as what initially comes on it. It's machine washable, heavy duty stitching. We really don't send these out too often. The covers are pretty fantastic. And as I had mentioned before, we do have a carrying bag available for the intimate rider chair. It folds up, fits right in there. You can take it on the go. It's designed specifically for the intimate rider. But as you can see here, we have an IR chair in there, so it's not so tight that it's going to be a struggle to get in there. It's just put it in, go on the go. We also have leg extensions available for the intimate rider chair. This is actually something that Living Spinal's founder, Andrew, who does have an SCI, he actually thought of this. So if you need a little bit more height on the chair, we do have this leg extension kit. You can go up to an additional 2 inches on height by using these plugs. They insert into the legs, and then you simply put the chair legs into there to your desired height. And in case the rubber feet ever wear out on you, we do have replacement rubber feet that fit on the IR chair, as well as the rider-mate bench set. It's a set of 4 on those. And same thing with the replacement cover for the IR chair. We do have a replacement cover for the rider-mate should you need it. Again, we don't really see these going out too often. Stuff is pretty durable. It's machine washable, and same thing that comes on the rider-mate bench initially. And then we also offer a carrying bag for the rider-mate bench in case you want to take your adventures on the go. You just fold it up, put it in there, and go on the go. And then we offer a couple of sets to help out with price and, get you what you need if you want the chair and the positioning. So we have the romance set, which is the IR chair and the rider-mate bench. It saves you some money over buying them individually. We also have the adventure set, which is the IR chair and the deluxe wedges. Again, it's a little lower in price than buying them separately, saves you some money. And again, by feedback, the wedges are definitely the more comfortable positioning option that we have through the IR currently. And in case you want to get any of this, it's available on our website. That email there, that's my direct email. Feel free to send me a message. And that phone number there with extension 920, that's my direct line. Feel free to give us a call for any questions. And if you would like, you can send me your email address. I've actually created a coupon. We can get you 5% off on the intimate rider products if that's something you want to take a look at. It's a little bit of help with what we can offer for you at this time here. And my boss probably hates this slide, but that's all, folks. Questions for me, I'd be happy to answer.
Can you send us the link to that or the email?
The link to the product page?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I certainly can. Actually, I have an email drafted up here, so yeah, I'll add a link into the direct page.
Yeah, so thank you for that, Ted. Donique, is it?
Once ordered, how long does it usually take for the delivery?
It goes pretty quick. It's 3 to 5 business days.
Very cool.
Awesome. So we're gonna hold the question just a little longer. The next presenter, Natalia, who co-hosting this particular webinar, she wants to talk about what Women on Wheels does, and then we're gonna go to Mitch, and then we'll come back and collectively ask all the questions. All right. So Natalia, it's your turn to take the floor.
Natalia, you're still muted.
Natalia, you're muted. You're muted.
Sorry. Okay. My name is Natalia Mendez. I'm the founder of Women on Wheels. A lot of the women that are a part of the group are here. Thank you all for coming. If anyone doesn't know what it is, we have a weekly virtual support group. It's all for women with spinal cord injury and paralysis. We have monthly education presentations, kind of like this, and we have some get-togethers when we can. I just want to thank all of the women for coming. Garrison and I wanted to do this because we tend to talk about sex in silos, if they even get spoken about. But, you know, the men talk with the men and the women talk with the women. And we thought it was important for us to have something where we were all speaking and learning together. So thank you to the vendors that have come to teach about what options are out there for adaptive devices. And thank you so much, Dr. Tepper, for coming and educating us on sex as a whole. It's nice to see you again. So I'll be manning or womaning the chat. We'll hold questions until after Dr. Tepper's presentation. And yeah, thank you everyone for coming.
All right. So I don't really have a formal presentation. I thought we were going to be talking
Yeah,
about
discussion as
the
well.
need. Well, I got it from here. I got it. I thought we were going to be talking about the need for this in rehab, and you all know it's a need, so I don't really have to talk to that. But I did a national survey way back 35 years ago, if you can believe that, of the first 500 individuals at that time on the mailing list of the National Spinal Cord Injury Association, now United Spinal Association. And that was back in the day before the internet. You had to type up things and mail them, and people had to mail them back. And I had a really strong response rate. And out of those folks, only half the people received any education or counseling in rehab. That means they didn't even receive a pamphlet, because the choices were a pamphlet, a 1-hour session, counseling. So half received, actually it was like 52%, they received nothing, right? The other 48% who received education, half of them said it didn't meet their needs. Like they only got a brochure, or if it was a woman, it was directed only towards men. So this goes back way a long time ago. So like in 1983, in 1983, something happened in healthcare called DRGs, and rehab length started to drop. The people I surveyed in 89 were on average 11 years post-injury. So that's even before rehab started to drop. So when I did my rehab, I did it up at Rusk institution, IRM, Institute of Rehab Medicine, and I got 7 months of rehab. I would not get 7 weeks of rehab today. So the situation on sexuality education in rehab has only gotten worse over the last 35 years. Fortunately, there are groups like this and the internet where we could help ourselves and educate each others. So I've been doing formal sex research for that long. I went on based on that results, right? People were writing me letters and thanking me and sharing information. No one at my committee, and this was for a master's in public health at Yale, and at that time, thought that people would answer my questions, but they did, and they wanted information, and that really led me. I was at Yale getting a degree in health policy and administration, and I wanted to actually go manage a rehab hospital. And based on those results, I ended up going on and I got a PhD in human sexuality education at University of Pennsylvania. And for all the women in the group, part of my research when I was at University of Pennsylvania was at Rutgers in New Jersey with a team of Doctors Beverly Whipple and Barry Komisarek. Beverly Whipple is known as the G-spot lady. Who here has heard of the G-spot? All right, so Beverly made the G-spot famous. She didn't discover it. Grafenberg discovered it way many years ago, but she named it after the first guy who reported it in the literature. So I worked with the G-spot lady, and my role was recruiting women with spinal cord injuries, complete injuries, to come to Rutgers, New Jersey, and masturbate in a lab with a funny tool that we designed. So it was, we called it a pressure transducer. but it was basically a tampon with a pressure thing. They had to go get fitted for a diaphragm before they came. We had a little piece of Velcro on the outside of the diaphragm that hooked to the pressure transducer. That went to a computer. Barry and I were in a separate room. Beverly, who is a nurse and a PhD, and another PhD nurse were in the room with the women, right? But we were able to see the amount of force, because if there was no sensation, we were able to tell them, push harder or you're pushing too hard. And so we were the first people to actually document that women with even a complete spinal cord injury could have an orgasm. Now, I knew this, from other women, but there was the belief in the literature that people with spinal cord injuries, men and women, couldn't have real orgasms. If we had a complete injury that interrupted the signals between the brain and the genitals, and that made it impossible according to the understanding of science at that time. So, people often say, oh, there's nothing out there for women. I say that the research out there in women had to do with pleasure and orgasm. So it's actually better, because the research before that was basically on men who could get an erection, who can ejaculate. And so it was basically an accounting. And for women, the talk was more about managing, for your period and risks involved with paternity, with carrying a baby, when you get pregnant. So with that history, knowing that I've been doing this, more than half my life, and probably longer than a lot of you have been around, there's probably no question that you could ask that will embarrass me. I might not have an answer, but I have an answer to most. And Ted, my relationship with Intimate Rider goes back so long, and so Lisa was the sister of the quad. I didn't know you weren't a quad. I saw the wheelchair in the back, and I just thought, oh, that might be her brother. So my relationship goes back to the sister of the guy who created it. And I've had an Intimate Rider for I don't know how many years. And yeah, it keeps on going. So thank you. So with that, ask me anything. Use me at
All
your will.
right. So
You have consent.
I'm gonna open up the floor for anyone who has questions. Feel free to ask. What I would suggest is that you drop it in the chat and I'll read it out, because it's just easier that way and it makes it more orderly. So let's start asking some questions. So I do have a question, Dr. Mitch.
Sure.
So what causes some males to have erections with the spinal cord injury and not be able to ejaculate versus having erections and being able to ejaculate?
All right. And so that we're going to have to break that up.
Okay.
So it's logically, we would think the person with the higher injury has less function, but that's not true. So there are three major nerves plus the vagus nerve, is which the vagus nerve we identified in our research in the lab with Beverly and Barry, that brings signals up from the genitals. Okay, before that, we never knew that. But besides that, there's a hypogastric nerve, which leaves our spine between like T10 and L1, L2. Okay, and so when you have a complete injury above that level, the higher your injury, the stronger your reflex. So the stronger, like your spasms, if you're having strong spasms, it's likely you're going to have reflex responses in your genitals, whether it be lubrication or erection, right? Or a large clitoris. So people with higher level injuries, well, to be specific, above T10, are more likely to have strong reflex erections. So that could be when you're being ranged, like when you're in the hospital. I had them all the time. When I had a catheter in, I had an erectional. When I was being ranged, I had a catheter, an erection. If a nurse positioned me on an X-ray machine, I had an erection, right? So I had a lot of strong, often non-wanted erections, right? But yet I was not able to ejaculate without the assistance of a vibrator. So we could get into that. So the first thing is that, so people with lower level injuries, if you have what we call flaccid paralysis, right? If your legs are atrophying really fast because you're not spasming, usually that's a lower level injury.
Yeah.
We have an area around T12 when I'm working with people, is most like those area injuries often result in a more flaccid paralysis. That's like the heart of the joint, the reflex where the hypogastric nerve comes in.
Yes.
And so generally, when we're talking about erections, we'll talk about men now. Well, not ignoring a clitoris, but just the men in with those kind of injuries, I'm usually moving to an injection because the pills aren't working, right? So Viagra and sildenafil or tadalafil, the different pills, they are more effective if you already have some level of engorgement, right? So, but if you don't, they're not going to work. But then the injection might, or a vacuum, because the vacuum is really just physically drawing blood into there. So the ability to get an erection is related to your level of injury and your completeness. So it's hard to talk about incomplete injuries because they're all over the board. Now, lower level injury, sometimes people get some engorgement with fantasy, so in the complete or even sometimes incomplete above the T10, right? Those are reflex activities stimulated by direct or indirect stimulation, to your genitals. Where we call it psychogenic erections come from fantasies, viewing things, reading erotica, right? So folks with the lower level injuries, they get more genital response as far as lubrication or some engorgement, not erection, through the psychogenic, through the fantasy, through the reading, through input from their brain. And they also may get a little bit of emission. A guy might be able to milk a little ejaculate out without an erection. So ejaculation and erection have different, right? That's why I said we had to split this all up. So now I know plenty of quads over the years who've had babies ejaculating into their partner's vagina without assistance. So they have strong reflexes and happen to do that. That's probably, they told me when I broke my neck that my chances of having kids were about 10%. So that's probably the 10% of people, small percentage of quads who could ejaculate without help. With help, and this goes to whether you have a quad or a pair or whatever, we could get people to ejaculate or, up to over 90%. So I might as well just stick with this for a moment. And then we'll go to questions. We have basically a rehabilitation protocol for ejaculation, which was started by a hospital up in Canada, but we published on it. So they start in Canada, in a particular hospital in Montreal, having people masturbate in the hospital. So people know sexuality is part of their rehab, right? And if they can't ejaculate with masturbation with the hand, they add a specialty vibrator, like the Ferticare or whatever. They take vibrators and they just have them souped up in the lab. So it needs to be a certain frequency and peak to peak amplitude. That's how fast it goes and how far the head moves, right? And this is true for bringing response for men and women. All right. And so they add the vibrator. So if with the vibrator, it doesn't work, they add a medicine called midodrine. Midodrine makes your blood pressure go up. Before midodrine, they used to pump you full of Sudafed for days. And then on the day, like you were going for a procedure, you would then do even a different dose. Now they use a medication called midodrine, kind of, drops your blood pressure. Sex makes your blood pressure, no, it brings up your blood pressure. Sex makes your blood pressure go up. So, it's got to be managed well if you have autonomic dysreflexia. So with that protocol, they're getting upward to 90+% of guys to ejaculate, and women to experience more pleasure and even orgasm. So it
Okay.
seemed like it's a simple question. It's probably the biggest question we get, and it's like something that the least staffed hospital should be able to give that kind of information. And unfortunately, I've been doing this, training health professionals for 35 years. And unfortunately, people get trained, they move on, and hospitals just haven't taken it up as much.
Thank you, Dr. Tepper. We do have another question. Mike Rosario, he was inquiring, is there a device, I'm assuming like the Intimate Rider, on the market for women? So any one
No.
of you could answer that, or Mike, you want to ask the
No,
question?
no, I
directly?
actually, I was just curious about the device he was initially talking about with the pressure. Is there a
Oh.
current device like that on the market for the women? Or is that just a scientific device?
The scientific, for that stimulator? No, there's no, like if a woman wants to stimulate her cervix.
Or her G-spot. I think that's when you were talking about it.
Yeah, so what we were actually doing the cervix because of the nerve innovation. We did have them stimulate the area of the G-spot on their own. So no, I mean, you could use any kind of sex device for that. The reason we had a pressure transducer was to get feedback so they don't hurt themselves. So if you're a complete injury, if you're a woman with no sensation, then you need to be careful, but there's really no reason to be pushing. I shouldn't say that. There's little reason to be pushing on your cervix and too hard, right? If you're not feeling it, it doesn't feel good. It's safer. I mean, if you could reach your G-spot on your own with your hand, because there's less chance that you're going to do any damage in there. But yeah, no, there's no special device. This was like something.
We have
built
another
for that.
we have another question in the chat. Why do I have
Sure,
erections off touch but not mental? I'm C7. How are ways I can ejaculate?
So that when I was talking about psychogenic versus reflex erection, right? If you're C7, and generally your erections that you get are going to be a result of stimulation below your level of injury, right? But yet the psychogenic, that your thoughts aren't going to result in erection, because the nerves that go from your brain to your genitals, they go through what's called the hypogastric nerve, which is coming out. I'd say, just say it spreads out below your chest, and those signals are not making it to the hypogastric nerve because they're cutting off right here. So what I try to do is to bring what we can do with our minds together with what we could do with our genitals, right? So in teaching people how to experience pleasure after injury, even with a complete injury, in addition to erections or lubrication or erections of the clitoris, I don't want to leave women out here. When we are sexually aroused, we have an increase in blood pressure, and that's why those of us with high level of injuries that are prone to autonomic dysreflexia might experience that. But everyone, man and women, gets an increase in blood pressure and respiration as they get more excited. So your heart rate goes up, your breathing increases, right? And then that before ejaculation or orgasm goes up tremendously. And we also experience what we call a sex flush, right? So there's a warmth that goes up your body, and sometimes you can actually see red in the chest, and we get nipples, and nipples get erect, your hair gets erect, right? Because that's from a process called it's from muscle tension, right? So it's neuromuscular tension. So sexual arousal has two parts: blood flow, increase in blood flow, which causes lubrication or erection, and an increase in neuromuscular tension, which includes nipples and hair. And then at orgasm, if you ever noticed your toes curls or your fingers come like this, or your stomach, go through a spasm, that's all a release of the neuromuscular tension. So that's why orgasm in people with higher spinal cord injuries is often accompanied with a lot of spasms in the legs and lower limbs, because it's like a undirected release, right? So usually people would release through ejaculation. You feel the sensations, and women feel the sensations around their vagina and their pubococcygeal muscles. And so that's that accounts for it. So I like to educate people, and so you should pay attention to your increase in your breathing and your heart rate and any increase in warmth. So like I'll have people like put their hands on their face and try to feel the increase in warmth, right? And so you could begin to combine the stimulation in your genitals with your mental thoughts and keying in to your heart rate, your respiration. Sometimes I do workshops on tantra. It's important to breathe, and with breathing also to make sound, because sound makes vibrations. Vibrations bring sexual energy upwards. And so you can learn to pair your thoughts with whatever's going on your genitals to get that more in sync. And in order to ejaculate, if you're not ejaculating with your hand, then we recommend trying a vibrator next. And so I had my baby using a Big Mother Panasonic vibrator. I've owned Ferticares. I've owned with the one with the two heads, for Ferticare and Vibrect, right? So those Ferticare are very expensive. Vibrect is supposedly almost as effective as the Ferticare. Both of them are medical. The Vibrect, you don't need a prescription for anymore. I think maybe, I'm not sure you do for Ferticare, but a cheaper vibrator with a long handle that has a rheostat, an adjuster that has a head that vibrates fast, like the rheostat makes it go faster, and a head that moves a lot, may also help you. So I recommend people investing less than $100 in a big vibrator that has a lot of power to use that. And if that doesn't work, and you have the resources, you could go for a medical grade vibrator. I also wrote an article for New Mobility. When I wrote it, it was called the ejaculation affirmation, but it was about what somebody on a CareCure website called nut busting, electro nut busting, right? So people were using their TENS unit to elicit ejaculation, and based on me interviewing the people on that listserv, it's not a huge population, but folks that were not ejaculating using even an expensive medical vibrator did have some success with the electroejac. So you could still search United Spinal Association. You go to unitedspinal.org or New Mobility, and then you search my name with male ejaculation, and you could find that article. Just like any other thing that might cause autonomic dysreflexia, electrical stim, if you're prone to that, will definitely do it. So I always talk about, managing AD, and I'm not going to talk about that here, but you can read about that article. And so, and when you're using electrodes, you don't want to put them across your chest, right? So we're talking about putting stuff on your genitals that you might have used for your legs or something like that.
All right. So the next question I'm gonna go to is from Lindsay, and her question was, can you share how to view the protocol that you referred to? Also, what was the name of the vibrator used in the protocol?
Yeah, so the vibrator they used up there, they souped up in their lab. So there's peak to peak amplitude and the frequency are two things. And the numbers I forget here. So Tiffany linked to one article. Let me see what article she put in there, because I would need to share. You could search. Oh God, you could. Tiffany, while I'm talking, can you search my name, like Mitchell Tepper, Marka, Alexander Sipsky, I don't know which last name they have in there, Stacy Elliott, and sexual rehabilitation. And you should come up with a couple of articles. It's in one of those. I could share it with Garrison after this meeting, and he could share it with all of you, because it's got a lot of other great information, because it's a collection. Both Marka and Stacy are MDs that I've done a lot of work with over the years. So they're probably in Canada. Stacy Elliott is in Vancouver, and Marka, I think now is in Alabama. But those are the two doctors who've been doing sex education and sex research and writing as long as I have. So we've been all friends and doing, and the other name is Francois. It's a French name in Montreal. So we'll get you that information so you could read that protocol.
All right. So Rashawn Wise said, can a T2 para ejaculate?
T2, theoretically, yes, with the help of, if you haven't done it with your hand, with the help of a vibrator or a vibrator and medication.
Yep. All right. Let me see if there's any more in the chat. Let's take a look.
Yeah, I'm not looking at the chat. I see
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
there. So.
I just want to jump in real quick.
Oh, jump in, Natalia.
Okay, I put in 2 links for websites that have all the toys.
Okay.
So for Lori's question, and she was asking, oh, I don't want to mess up your question, Lori, so I'll ask specifically.
I think she was looking for something that can do penetration. Because she said vibration never gets her orgasm.
Spot wise. I need an in and out motion. And is there any toy and device? Lori, did you look at the website? There's lots of
there's
toys.
there's some crazy stuff out there, like machines. Right?
Yeah, those machines are very expensive.
Right.
They're very heavy and kind of unwieldy. Someone like, the spinal cord injury,
I think the vibrators on this site are far less costly.
Yeah.
Something that's
the ones that are mechanical that will actually, like the Venus for women or whatever, you sit on it like there's a support or bolster and that moves. Yeah, there are so many toys there that you could put in the vagina that will do something like that.
Self-thrusting.
That I know specifically for women with spinal cord injuries.
And sucking, I don't know a better word for that, but self-sucking for the clitoris as well. And
there's a lot of those too,
Side there's nipple suckers too. I'm here for the women. Okay,
Yep. Take the floor.
I mean, if anybody has any other questions, but I did put 2 links in there for websites for all kinds of toys for men, women, couples, a lot of things that are automated for us with finger dexterity issues. So take a moment and check it out. Go ahead, Gary.
Some women may get hypersensitive in the clitoris after their injury. And so you want to make sure either to use, more lube, or you could use a powder instead of a lube, or sometimes you could stimulate the inner thigh and get some arousal if you have that kind of irritation. So there are ways of kind of around that.
But he does bring up a good point about being knowledgeable about AD and watchful for what your signs are for AD, because I definitely got gifted a dildo while I was still like almost had a stroke. Hold on a second. I can't find the button. Okay. So yeah, my pressure went way past like 225 because I just like let a vibrator sit on my clitoris like three months post injury. You got to look for the signs. Like I almost died. So it's a very real thing, a very serious thing. Look for the signs. Look for if you're sweating. Look for if you're spasming. If you feel like your heart is beating a little too fast. Stop. Relax.
Yeah, because it's sometimes until a certain point it's silent. I've certainly been up to your level of 220 and over, where I get like a terrible headache at the base of my skull, and even like a pounding of the heart, like it's off a little bit. So that's why I wrote in that article about like guys will, risk death to see themselves ejaculate, because it's so important to us. So, but I don't want to see anyone dying just chasing that. You want to live another day to have some pleasure. So I know there's a lot of focus, just like we want to walk again, we want to ejaculate, we want to have the same experience as before. But it's really important to understand that even like in the lab, women with complete spinal cord injuries with no sensation in their genitals were still able to experience orgasms. And we measured those orgasms, with heart rate, respiration, pupil diameter, and also a scale where the women said, I'm having orgasm, and how does it feel on 1 to 10? And they were up like 9, 10. So it's possible to experience pleasure and orgasm for men and women without an erection, without ejaculation, without lubrication. All right. It's just that no one learns this stuff, right? We know what we know before we break our neck, right? But there's a whole world of pleasure out there that's accessible to you, but you need to learn. It's a skill. You develop it over time. One of the hardest things to do, whether it's walking or orgasm and sex, is letting go of what it was like before your injury, right? So my thesis in my dissertation, which was on pleasure and orgasm, is it's a process of sexual self-discovery, right? And without help, it's haphazard, right? Just like we learned about sex before injury, haphazard. We learn from our friends. We learn from porn now, right? We're not really learning. So
May I just say, doctor, that it's also a process of acceptance when it comes to
yes,
our injury also.
right. So we need to let go. We have to kind of accept where we are, and and then we can move on, right? So, you could keep your hopes for whatever, walking or ejaculating, but I don't like to kill anybody's hopes or expectations, but you start off from where you are. I help people from where they are, and I help people maximize and optimize their pleasure from where they are, and then we could work towards, a future of something else you want,
I think it's also important to if you can to maybe think about not being so genital focused when it comes to sexuality. That's not saying to not go after orgasms and to not, look for that. Because like you said, we can definitely get pleasure from that. But there's a whole thing about, often everything from your level of injury upwards gets much more sensitive. You can have orgasms from your nipples or your ears being stimulated. And it's about like opening up the map and, like you said, re-exploring your entire body. Because there might be parts of your body that give you a level of pleasure that it didn't before, but you'll never know unless you look. So yeah, I think it's important.
Absolutely. And those messages will get to your brain. And orgasm is essentially a brain mediated event, right? Although you initiate it, if we're typical before injury with genitals, it doesn't have to be. If you remember, people have wet dreams in their sleep, they're not touching themselves. So what Beverly did in the lab before she worked with women with spinal cord injuries, she studied women in their lab that could have orgasms through fantasy alone.
Yeah,
right? And so, yeah. And
it's
so,
true.
yeah, so she documented that. And when I talk to people about wet dreams, they could make that connection, right? Because what is that? That's your mind having a dream. That's a fantasy in your sleep. And if you
Well,
take sleep,
Dr.
yeah,
Mitchell, is it weird that my first orgasm, I guess to kind of put it in, I guess like perspective of what you're saying, I was being kissed on my neck and she
yes,
was kissing me on my neck and sucking on my neck and it happened. And
yes,
she was like, she was playing, with my genitals, but it wasn't like like I was having intercourse. I wasn't having intercourse and it kind of just happened. And
So
I guess that's kind of what you're saying. Like it wasn't.
in my research, people said it happened for the first time. It happened by surprise because they didn't have the same precursors as before their injury. They weren't having intercourse. They weren't
I
doing the
didn't know
same.
what was happening.
Right, right. It like happened by surprise, and by your smile, I still see it was a surprise, right? And so, yeah, definitely work those areas above the level of injury where you have sensation, and you know, in your mind has to be open. You know, you have to know that this is possible. You know, because when I talk to people about their first experiences, they said, well, you know, it's not normal, it's not the same. And then when they tried something, and usually it's masturbation, even in the hospital, they say it wasn't the same, it's pointless, why bother? I'm like, what were you thinking about? They were wondering if it would still work. I was wondering, you know, and it was kind of mechanical. I was thinking this doesn't feel the same, or I couldn't feel it. So when your mind is on all these things, you're not going to be, that's going to block your pleasure. Right. So like when I'm working with people like early on and they want to explore masturbation, I say, listen, just explore, touch, you know, do you feel more on your left or right? Do you feel sensation? Do you feel, you know, well, tell me what you feel, but I don't want you to have any goal of either getting an erection or ejaculation or orgasm. Just tell me what it feels like. You know, is it different if you pinch, if you pull? Right? So it's more I have people explore without any expectation of any outcome. And that's what we want to begin to do with our whole body. And then you come up with these great surprises that Brandon shared, you know.
All right, so we have time for about 2 or 3 more questions, just to be cognizant of everybody's time. One of the questions that was asked a while ago was Justin asked, where is the best place to use a vibrator for a male? And then Lindsay dropped a few questions as well. And if anyone has a closing question, feel free to ask. But those are the next 2 questions.
So the vibrator would be on the perineum, which is the area of the penis if you're circumcised. So if you're hanging down, if it's up, let's say if it's lying on your belly, it's at the base of the head of the erection or the glands, right? Where, and if you're, well, it's still in the same area if you're circumcised. So it's in that area. If your penis were on your belly, it's right underneath where that ridge comes together, you know. So that was the first part of the question.
Yes, and then that was the male vibrator. And then Lindsay asked the question, she asked 2 questions rather. Have people had, I'm assuming, what support, if any, have people had with learning how to use transfer on/off position wedges, positioning aids? So I guess that will have to, you know, be with the
So,
intimate rider.
on my website.
And last
Dr.
question.
Okay.
Has
So let me-
anyone used assistive technology to use sex toys? So I guess that's a 2-part question.
So at drmitchelltepper.com, drmitchelltepper.com, you click on, I don't know what it says, projects or something, but I have the sex and disability or sex and paralysis video series. So I have one interview, well, it's a woman. She is a para getting on and off a wedge, giving step-by-step instructions of how she does it. If she were a higher quad, I'm not sure how she would do it. But Garrison, I'm sure, are you familiar with the spinal cord injury website at Mount Sinai? So you guys have a spinal cord injury site, and you did a lot of videos after I did my videos, and there's some higher level women there doing, not on wedges, but in Hoyer lifts, etc. But as far as getting on off a wedge, if you could, you know, transfer yourself independently, there's a nice video, maybe 6, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, of not only getting on and off the wedge, but showing different positions and explaining why why she likes the position she likes. So that's at drmitchelltepper.com, and go into sex and paralysis video series on a drop down menu, and And you could see that, you could see one on tantra and touch, so there's like a half a dozen, and one on vibrators, videos there. What was the next question?
Yeah, that was
ask
Natalia.
Yeah, if anyone's used assistive technology to use sex toys. So some of these sex toys, the ones that are like self-thrusting and stimulating, they come with apps. So you can actually control it from an app on your phone, control everything that it's doing. And those are awesome. Also, what was the other question that you asked?
Well, while you're thinking, I did a talk on sex tech and AI, which is on United Spinal Association's site now. I don't know whether it's under their sex tech channel, but it's there. So I talk about all the updates, people using VR in combination with that, and all the apps as Natalia mentioned with the toys. So just
Oh, I
another.
remember. Thank you, Doctor. The other thing that I remembered is that I'm a C67 level complete. And wedges are great if you need positioning aids, but I found it to take away from the spontaneity. So I learned more how to use the pillows, the very pillows that you have on your bed. And if you want to, get some stronger pillows to hold your weight, you can do the same things that you do with an expensive positioner that's bulky and takes up a lot of space. I think the same way that Dr. Tepper was saying, exploring a lot and learning, you can put yourself in positions that are comfortable and pleasurable, perhaps without needing as much of these bulky devices.
So those pillows you're talking about, they have body pillows, and
Mhm.
some are with down, but some are with foam. And
Yeah.
a lot of people have problems sleeping on their back. They want to sleep on their side with a good spine support, and they put a leg up or whatever. So there's lots of these stronger foam pillows as body support. So just search body pillows on Amazon. Yeah, and you have to experiment. I talk about that, having pillows and I have a sleep number bed with a remote control, right? So I'm able to change a lot of positioning with the bed. It's not a hospital bed, but it's like a hospital bed. And so that's also comes in handy. And you could change the number, the pressure on the bed, if your partner's on top and you want more pressure, or, if you want more air in your bed, if you're going to be on top. And then if you want to sleep, you lower the amount of air, because, it's kind of more difficult for a quad to be on top on a water bed or a soft bed. So you could put your number up to 100 for sex and then put it back down to 35 to go to sleep.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank Dr. Mitchell Tepper. I'd like to take Ted. I don't want to mess up your last name. Kopek, I think.
Kepke, don't worry, I've got
All
every
right.
pronunciation under the sun, and as long as I'm unmuted here, I wanted to say thank you very much for inviting me. This has been
Yes,
quite
yes.
the experience for me, very eye-opening in a number of ways, and I am absolutely thrilled that I was given the ability to be here today, so thank you.
And I'd like to thank Women on Wheels for co-hosting this webinar with us. And
I
I'd like
put
to
the
thank everybody for
website in the
coming.
chat. Yeah, there's some links on the website for a bunch of different kinds of tools and sex aids. So you
And
can
this
check-
is just the first part of our series. So we're going to bring more because we know individuals have more questions to ask. And yeah, it's going to be a 4-part series, and we're going to try to touch everything with sex and SCI from different angles. So stay tuned for more. All right.
Just
So I'm gonna let everybody go
remind me what
now.
article you're looking for afterwards, so I
Yeah.
could send it to you.
Thanks,
And
everyone.
yeah, if you want to drop anything in the chat, Dr. Mitchell or Ted, feel free to do so. But yeah, we're gonna conclude this meeting now because got to be mindful of everybody's time. And yeah, thank y'all for coming. I'm gonna stop the recording now.